Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the SheilaMacShow, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's SheilaMacShow here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and today we are discussing embracing the masculine and feminine within, why honoring all parts of ourselves and others leads to relationship success as well as personal fulfillment. All right. And I also have a very special good friend and author who will be our guest and interviewed later on in the show. So just to get started on this very special topic, here we are discussing again the importance of honoring both the masculine and feminine within ourselves and in others, regardless of gender. We will also explore how bringing all parts of ourselves to a relationship can lead to greater success and fulfillment. First, it is essential to recognize that the masculine and feminine are not restricted to gender. Instead, they are energies that exist within all of us, regardless of our biological sex. The masculine energy is associated with qualities like strength, assertiveness, and independence, while the feminine energy is associated with qualities like empathy, intuition, and nurturing. So, by acknowledging and honoring both energies, we can achieve a sense of balance and harmony within ourselves. When we suppress one energy in favor of the other, we may feel imbalanced and unfulfilled. So now, this is kind of important, not just for relationships, as we are just leaving our Valentine's Day and maybe still celebrating Valentine's month, that it's really something, this goes beyond just our intimate relationships. This goes into all areas of our life, how we parent, how we show up at work, work with clients, family, and friends. So this is kind of a fun game that you can play with the people in your circle and see what kind of response you get. If you play a game where you ask how you're showing up, what maybe one of my favorite games was a time where I was in a women's group. It was all moms, and we were supposed to write down 4 different descriptive words about how we're showing up for each other, like how I perceive the other person in the room. And overwhelmingly, I got very feminine words, and I was not thinking I was showing up that way. And it was kind of interesting. I was like literally shocked. I was like, really? And although I am very feminine, I didn't realize the perception from others in the group. And so that was kind of eye-opening for me. And it's really fun because sometimes you might think you're showing up one way. You may feel like you're very in your masculine or very in your feminine, but the world is perceiving you showing up in a different way. And so understanding those two different parts is really going to help. It was really eye-opening for me. So in relationships, again, it is essential to bring all parts of ourselves to the table, including our masculine and our feminine energies. When we suppress the parts of ourselves in a relationship, we may feel like we're not being true to ourselves, leading to a lack of connection and dissatisfaction. Yes. So that thing about being authentic, about being true to yourself is really the best place to live by and through. When you are truthfully showing up as as who you really are. Uh, when you think about a young child and they're sharing their gifts and talents and just being who they are, they don't have all the different things that society puts on us on how we're supposed to be, and they just show up incredible and beautiful and they shine. And then we go through so much that we're supposed to do this or follow this rule or that rule, and we kind of, it tends to have people sometimes um, dim their light. And so when you really show up as who you are, you're going to be attracted to and attract aligned friendships, relationships, energies that are aligned with your values, and you're going to have so much freedom and respect in that because it's your truth. And it's something that people can't really, when you're really in your truth, it's like you're being in integrity with yourself and with the other people in your life. And there's nothing better than knowing that somebody's in their full integrity. That's what people want. They want the truth. And so, for example, if someone is more naturally in touch with their feminine energy and they feel like they need to suppress that side of themselves to be accepted by their partner, by their friends, maybe by a work group, it can lead to frustration and resentment over time. In contrast, when we honor all parts of ourselves and bring them to a relationship, business, whatever we're doing, we can experience deeper connections, understanding, and fulfillment. It is also important to recognize that we all have a unique balance of the masculine and feminine energies within ourselves, and that there's no right way to express them. Some people may have more masculine energy while others may have more feminine energy. The key is to recognize and honor what feels authentic for us as individuals and to allow others to do the same. When we honor both the masculine and feminine within ourselves and in others, we can create more harmonious relationships and a more fulfilling life overall. It's essential to recognize that each energy brings its own unique gifts and strengths, and by embracing them, we can tap into our fullest potential. So, bringing all the parts of ourselves to a relationship, a business, into leadership, and honoring both the masculine and feminine energies within ourselves and others can lead to greater success and fulfillment. By embracing all aspects of ourselves and our partners, we can deepen our connections, experience greater understanding, and create a more fulfilling life. And so now, drum roll, please. We are going to start off with an interview with my incredible friend who is really incredible when it comes to honoring these energies. Don't tell me I just did that again and I didn't press record. Fuck. What on earth? What?
Welcome to the SheilaMacShow, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm Coach Sheila Mack, and today we have special guest Sandy Sembler. Sandy is an internationally recognized embodiment and feminine coach and creator of the Sacred She program, empowering women to break up with toxic patterns, limiting their love, business, and success, and embrace a joy-filled, abundant life. Wow. Well, welcome to the show, Sandy.
Oh my goodness, it's so good to see you again. What a night! I just Your energy is always so infectious. So anytime I can be around you, it just feels so good. So thank you.
You too. We've always had so much fun. We traveled together and attended a lot of Donnie Epstein and Tony Robbins events. So we had a blast with all that and learning. So coaches have coaches too.
Exactly.
So, yes. And one of the things I like to start with is this show actually was born from my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. I wrote it in 2019 and published it in 2020. So right in time, because we have had so many tough situations hit us globally. So I like to start off asking if you have a time in your business or personal life that you could share with the audience where you hit a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Yeah. Wow. I'm glad you added the personal as well, because I mean, I actually have something that will overlap both of them, which is great. So there's been several in the life of an entrepreneur. I just turned 50. So there's many times that I've turned my everything upside down and then back again. But the first thing that comes to mind when you ask me that is I was in the mortgage business and I sold my mortgage company when I got married and was doing a lot of real estate and such. And so that was really something. But what happened is that I actually, whenever I got a divorce, that was right in the middle of a recession. So there was no mortgage company to go back to really in that space, at least where I didn't want to. So I was in this big healing journey. I had left a very toxic relationship and I was in a space of healing. And then and that was 2 years in the making. When I came out of that space, I got into another relationship that was very similar to the first. And I had built a very successful online direct sales business where I had 30,000 women that I was coaching and mentoring all around the world. And it was fantastic. And I did it, really with a lot of grit, a lot of humility, grit and grace, I like to say, from the little girl from South Carolina, right? And we had a campaign about domestic violence awareness. There was no victimhood going on at all. You know a little bit about the backstory with that. And then as soon as I started dating again, I was like in a 2-year celibate space healing as I was building this business, raising my young 10-year-old son, thought I was doing everything right. And in so many ways I was. And then as soon as I started dating again, I ended up in another relationship that was very similar to all the ones before. And it was like same song, different record. And it sent me down this spiral that I had never been in before, because I had always picked myself up by my bootstraps, quite frankly. I've said this my whole life. My mom, my grandmother, you can't grow up in the South and not use that term. It's inevitable. You have to. But what was amazing to me is that I really lost my moxie. I lost my zest. I couldn't understand how I did it all right. And how things went so wrong. And that's, when I ended up having a very dear friend of mine who recently passed. She introduced me to Tony, and I had my intervention with Tony Robbins. And that's when I got introduced to brain patterning and why I was attracting the same people in my life, which completely changed the trajectory of my life, of my business, of who I attract in my life, meeting people like you, for example, and, up-leveling in a way that that nothing else would have worked, honestly, because I tried everything. So understanding the way the brain works and the way we're always in some type of survival mode, right? And so to be able to act in a way as if we're already there and trick this crazy nervous system that we have into seeing and believing something different.
That's beautiful, incredible. And something we all go through in certain times in our life where we hit these tough situations, especially in relationship. I recall also getting out of a not so healthy relationship and then ending up with the same guy, the same thing. And I was like, wait a minute, the only thing that needs to change is me.
100%. I mean, it really is we were the common denominator, but you and I know that, right? I mean, we've spent a lot of nights talking but even with the work with Tony, I mean, at some point, if it's all in your head and you don't get it in your body, then you will keep attracting it. And so that's, when I got into the embodiment space, that we have to be able to feel to heal. And so I just find that a lot of women that are attracted to my work are very successful women in their own right, in whatever capacity you view success, but there's still like this itch that needs to be scratched. And they have the same, anytime something happens more than 3 times, and not just the same situation, but like in different scenarios, you're just running a pattern. Mm-hmm. And that actually is very relieving. It's like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't necessarily my fault. This is something that could have been passed on from childhood or just through our DNA. And so then there's things we can do to shift that. But that really, for me, there were a lot of times in my life that I've been living in survival. I know that for a fact. But that was the time that it was so pivotal, because then I was serving women and men as well, because you're working on relationships, but from a place of fullness. Because it sent me down the trajectory of working with teachers around the world, so I could help them break up with the patterns, like like you said in the intro. So yeah, thank you for that.
Wow, that's great. And I think that's something that it happens where, at least for me, it was a time where I needed the break and to really work on healing myself. And I think about so many people lovingly came to me and said, okay, you will be happy when you're in this relationship, or happy when XYZ shows up. And I found the secret was, when I found my own happiness,
right,
it attracts all the other happy people. Who wants to take care of somebody or be in a relationship with someone that needs you to support their happiness 24/7? It's not even humanly possible.
No, it's called codependency, right? And yeah, it really is. There's something about, understanding this kindness we can have for ourselves. And then, and this is really how I got into the masculine and the feminine essences, because when I had that intervention with Tony, I was a very masculine woman. And I look back on the pictures of that day or that night, or God, it went on for hours. It felt like it was years. I don't even recognize who she is. Like, that woman does not exist anymore. And not just because of the way I look, but really the way I process information, and how I can bring in that masculine energy, when I'm in go mode, and then how I choose to stay more in the flow mode. And so, and that makes the world a better place. I really like to run everything through the filter of, is the world better if I? Is the world better, for example, me being here with you, so that way I get to decide. I have agency over my body, but also it's more of, I want to light up the world just by, what I'm doing and who I'm serving. So that particular time that you asked about, not only changed my life, but has changed a lot of lives in the process, because I can speak truth, and also with all the life's experience, and of course, all the teachers I've worked with. I know that I'm coaching and teaching, all the women I'm working with, that it comes from a place of authenticity. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. It's so important. We do tend to do that. Now I have a little feedback. We have a lot of.
No, I'm good.
Let's see here. Do you have headphones at all, or a headset?
I'm on a microphone.
Okay. Let's see if okay, that's better. Whatever, I don't know if you did something or magic happened.
Magic.
Yes, that'll be taken care of. Okay, so basically something happens where there's a time of awareness that shows up. And I think that you mentioned that awareness comes first when breaking a pattern. Yeah. And with all the people I've worked with and myself, you don't wake up one day, you don't listen to or go to a coach, or wake up the next day and like, boom, you're 100% different. And it takes time. And every time it's like baby steps where, oh, whoops, I'm doing that pattern again. Okay, back up. But it's the awareness. And in that, many times people get angry with themselves, or maybe their loved ones that are helping them through creating new patterns are very frustrated because, hey, you didn't get to that point in one day. and that anger is really not helpful. Even especially your own, where it's like, oh, I failed again. I didn't meet the new standard I set for myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really tricky, because that's where people tend to give up right when they're really close to getting to the other side. It's awareness, it's forgiveness of self, and starting the next day or that next moment to go back to the new habit and not be beating yourself up.
No, 100%. I mean, we like to call it AAA, which I learned from Dr. Epstein, right? You have the awareness, and then you have the acknowledgement. When two people come together, and then you can accept that. And, and I know for the audience here, accepting is not resignation. What it does, it actually allows your channels to open. So energetically, you have more resources. Truthfully, as I had gone to the back, I'm home, imagine that. I had gone to the back to like wash my hands and like do my hair a little bit. And something had come, my husband had said something to me. And we had a meeting today with our business coach, and a couple of things came up, and I could feel like I call it whack-a-mole. Like when something from the past is like, oh, there it is. And I have really great tools on how to actually, move these things through me. I think, to your point, we can become aware, but it's the next step. What are we going to do? And what I like to teach, with my clients and programs is that what I've been taught is that you feel to heal. That we can go grab that mole over here and then we can squish it down. It's going to pop up someplace else. But what if we just actually allow ourselves to move with it? And in the feminine space, what I say is that the more nonlinear movement we can do, the more we clear our channels. And so, and then that's where we actually, instead of feeling guilt and shame wrong, although we know that's the lowest level of consciousness, but we also, it's going to pop up. And then the next minute, if we actually can just allow ourselves to move through it, there's going to be something else that's there. And I really believe that we can have two opposing emotions at the same time. And the sooner that we can actually make them okay, but we don't have to coddle them, right? Then I think there's something there.
Yes, there's something incredibly healing about having space for the emotions.
Yeah.
As you know, I lost my son in December. And he had a heart condition. We found out in 5th grade, we almost lost him then. And so it was something that you always worry about, but you're like, go live your life, have a beautiful, fun, happy life. And, and so when that happened, my daughter moved home with me, and they were best friends, brother, sister, best friends. So it was so hard. And we did, therapy, grief counseling. We talked a lot. She's studying psychology. She's been through Chloe Madonna's training when she was very young. And so we were able to really go through the emotions. I mean, getting angry, yelling and crying. And we made space for that to heal, because if we didn't, we would start having physical ailments.
That's great. There's actually an organization here. It's called Alpha House, and there's same thing. And it is because grief does not always come at a loss from a death of a person, like leaving the earth. It could be the loss of a dream that that you no longer will have. I mean, they could be the same thing. You thinking about your son and him getting married, for example, or a lot of people talk about grief. I mean, John, my husband, and I, we do a lot of work together, and talking about bringing couples together and magnifying their problems. Many people have come to us in the past year, wanting either out, or they want to actually amplify what they have or fix what they didn't even know was there. And so grieving the loss of, what was, I mean, that was something we experienced a lot through COVID is how can we see the gift in it, of course, but also life will never quite be the way it was. And if you don't have the power of the pivot, like many people with that mindset, then you're going to be suffering a lot. And so I actually see that there's even I have clients of mine now that Mother's Day is coming up, and some of them have not been able to, have a child. And, it's to be very sensitive to that as well, but also be able to move through it and not just coddle it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Interesting.
That makes me think of when I first I've had one son, and I was told by multiple doctors that there's no way you could have another baby. Just impossible.
So that's why we did foster to adopt. And I came through the foster care system as a young girl and emancipated at 15, this and that. So I wanted to give back anyway. We ended up with this sole contract of adopting these 3 beautiful children. Then I got pregnant. And I said, I thought this was impossible. This is 8 years later. 8 years. And I said, how is this happening? Then, I go back. And my last 2 are 14 months apart. I go back and I said, I don't know, there's something wrong. I'm gaining weight. And I feel bloated. What's happening? And they said, well, you're pregnant again. I said, how's that possible? Did you make a mistake and leave one in there? The doctors were laughing. And I was like, how is this? I was told it was impossible, but it was a sole contract. And it's something that happens that whether it's aligned that you adopt or help other children, if you're called to be with children, the more you can connect and hold babies and have children in your life, either it opens that you adopt or that you end up having your own child in one way or another, through maybe a surrogate or whatever's needed. So be open to that. And I totally believe it was that sole contract, that guided situation that happened where we are supposed to have all these children in the family.
Incredible. Thank you for sharing that. So did I hear you were adopted, did you say as a teenager? Is that what you said?
Well, actually I was homeless 10 to 13 and a half. And then from there, I went to foster care. I didn't know there was such a thing, so I thought it was kind of cool. And I did that for a few years. I emancipated at 15.
There you go. That's what I heard. Got it.
So that was my experience. And I even went to a camp for really bad kids when I was emancipating. Like they had killed somebody or taken an eye out. And I was like, I don't know, I'm emancipating. I didn't do a darn thing. But it was a 6-month process. I'm in a prison camp for young kids. And I got to know all the kids inside the facility. And I got to talk to them on a soul level and learn about what happened, what made them do what they did. And it changed the way I can relate to other people, see beyond the story of what happened.
So that's incredible. I just knowing you as I've known you through the years, gosh, it's been almost 8 years now. Oh my gosh. So thinking of that, and we volunteer with some different organizations and such in the foster system. It's just going through MAP classes, like the parent certification. I didn't even realize that was embodiment when I first got the certification years ago, where they actually had you act out, what it would be like for you to be a foster mom or, adoptive mom. And then, you have something happen with this child, and it would allow you to get inside of, embody what it would feel like to be a parent to a child in this space. In other words, they're testing you because they don't trust that your love's going to last. So they're testing you. And so what do you do? So they had us, what I call embodiment practice is what we do with our clients in a way. When a woman tests a man, for example, because she's not sure if he's going to stay, it's that same thing. And a lot of that can come from a place of insecurity or wounds, and then not. So you learned at such an early age. So it makes complete sense why that would happen. I didn't know that about you. That is really great. I may have to call you for some some I may have to call you for some information or some advice or just some love. Yeah. I actually have a heart to adopt older children. And so, and there's definitely a need for that. And so we shall see, to be revealed.
Yes. It's when you're called to do it, it'll align, and you will find that the child that's meant to be in your life is going to show up, and they're going to be your teacher as much as you are theirs. And it's that beautiful, it's just an incredible situation, and it changes everybody's life.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. That's it.
For anybody listening in who's thinking about adopting or foster care, there are programs to get started where you can do respite care. And that's where you are doing part-time. You get approved to be a backup foster parent. So a lot of times the children aren't allowed to leave a state, and the foster family wants to vacation to see a relative or whatever. And so you'll be a respite care provider. And that's a good way to kind of get a feeling for what is this going to be like. And It's
going to work for our family. That's one way. There's also mentorship. I still mentor at 2 different girls' homes. And that's something where I actually help with the emancipation and getting ready for job interviews and to get on their own when they never have been.
Yeah. It's the little things that we take through Ready for Life here in St. Pete. I mean, it's fascinating, the things that we take for granted. Hearing that these are for kids that kids are now adults that have aged out of foster care. And it's kind of like that no man, like the misfit toy, so to speak, from Rudolph. I mean, you see these beautiful souls, and they are just talk about grit and work ethic, and but talk about patterns, things like that, and these beliefs that have been passed down. So I love that we have that in common. Thank you for sharing that too. It's you're right. I mean, just if you feel called to work with children. There's 1,005 ways you can work and millions ways you can work with children and just, show up. And you're right. I've learned so much just from my desire to want to do this. And also, in my former marriage, grieving that wasn't going to happen. He changed his mind. And I remember that grief of realizing that was over. And then, of course, realizing that it wasn't, when there was like a rebirth, no pun intended, so, just to some degree. So, how is it working now with COVID? Are you actually able, where you are you able to actually still go in to see the kids, go to the facility? Are you able to actually still be active?
Yes, for some, but you have to test. And it just depends on your state and where you're at. So like my daughter, she just has to do a regular test, and they test all the girls in their home a lot more than they used to be. And it's a little bit more restricted right now, but it's still something. It's great to get started now, because just like you mentioned, there's lots of training that you have to do before you even get to have contact with the kids. And so I also do some online things with some that are in the home that I grew up in a little bit, was David and Margaret home in Laverne. And so with that's an all girls home. So I still kind of am involved with that a little bit. And it's just, they love to hear about somebody that has gone through the process and actually survived and got out the other side and have success.
Yeah, it's interesting too. One of the things that we've brought to where we are is a theta healing to some of the people that are in the program. Because I don't know if you're familiar with theta. Are you familiar with theta healing? Yeah, I mean, that's been interesting to see, because some of these things, like I mentioned, you test on a core level, like anything spoken to you or over you since the moment you were conceived. You can imagine, as you really can imagine, not feeling wanted, or a genetic level, anything that's 7 generations back from the moment you were conceived, and then a history level, and then a soul level, because trauma can happen in the womb. I mean, it's just passed down sometimes. So that's it's beautiful to. And it still amazes me in this process, meeting some of these kids, and just what they desire is something that has just been so basic and just kind of given to me through the years, something that's just like a stable home. So I actually started this process as a single woman, and, I'm married now. And that was one of my, in order for me to, I would need, John didn't realize, he didn't know if he wanted to have more kids. And that was my, a few years ago, was, in order for me to continue to date you, or exclusively, this is my dream. And so that was something. We didn't see each other for a couple of weeks. He came back all prayed up, and we started that process. So you gotta hang tight to your dreams, right?
Yes. And that's something to kind of discuss, is when dating and finding the right alignment. I mean, I think that for me, what I found is just being really honest helps so much, because you're going to waste your time and if it's something that's really not aligned. And maybe you want to waste time for a while, and that's all good too.
Yeah. Well, but to your point, I mean, you and I, you've always thrown out some great zingers in the dating world through the years. You would send me a message out of the blue, or I actually was looking at like a thread of ours, and I was like, oh, like always some good things, right? And I like to call it dating intentionally. I mean, I did something that I like to call a masculine cleanse, where I really, it wasn't just about being celibate for a certain amount of time. It really was looking at my relationship to the masculine, not only the masculine and the gender of a man, but also my own masculine, the masculine in you. And how's my relationship with all of that? And that was something obviously I've learned, through the years with teachers. And I didn't realize that, that manipulative part of us sometimes that will use our femininity to get ahead or whatever that is. And I don't mean like the casting couch kind of a thing. I mean, but you know what I mean? I'm sure that's totally toxic feminine. But just that, are we getting a dopamine hit, when the guy at the mailbox smiled at us or whatever it is? I mean, it's like this to pay attention. Where are we getting our happy? Back to what you said in the beginning, where is our happy coming from? So for me, I was this masculine cleanse, for 90 days after I had done essentially a nervous system scrub, and with some of my teachers and my trainings. And then when I started dating again, I dated fully and full on, like you said. I was totally honest. Like I mentioned, I was dating intentionally. I was practicing dating, and in the space of revealing, not only revealing like what I desire, but responsiveness, which would mean if I thought a man was a pig, I may wink at him, for example. Or if he says something that was kind of off color, I may say, ouch. Or if he said something that really lit me up, I would just be very responsive, which is, of course, us and our feminine, right? Mm-hmm. Which is, in a world where so many women are working and super successful, the last thing I found that a man wants, and this works on online dating too, is to be met with another masculine. I call it the redwood. So, here, there's so many of us that are on this screen like this, and we're sitting like this, and there's no polarity when we're both in redwood. So I have clients that, they are in whatever state they're in. I'm in Florida, and I know you and I have more, we're a little more free than some areas. But some people can't get out and about. I might expand your whatever online dating, whatever it is, and practice dating in the way that I'm suggesting. Like really practice the way, how does your body feel in the way, is he sitting? Can you actually have a conversation where you're revealing? Watch how you're showing up. If adoption is something that I'd rather be alone than be with a man who is not for adoption, own that. I'd rather be alone than be with a man who doesn't have an entrepreneurial spirit. So I have a whole process that I like to take women through. So when they do show up, in this space, that they really know what matters to them. Because it does matter. It does matter. I have a funny story. Do we have time for me to tell you a funny story?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Oh,
we
go
good?
ahead.
So when John and I, when I was doing this whole dating thing, I actually was going to leave Florida. My son had gone off to college. I was empty nesting. And so I really wanted to move to Santa Monica. That was like where I wanted to go. That was what I was putting my house in the market, all going to happen. Anyway, long story short, Cameron had come home from college, and him and his girlfriend had broken up, and he was heartbroken. This was like 3 or 4 years ago. So I had never seen him heartbroken before. Single mom, only son. All of a sudden, the guilt hit me. If only I would have chosen better. If only I would have had a good role model for him. If only, like, woe is me, right? And I remember it was Christmas time, as I mentioned, and I was sitting in the corner of the den, and I could see my Christmas tree. All the lights were off. I was admiring the Christmas tree, and I was having a glass of wine, and we had gone to dinner. He had gone off with friends. And I had the music on, and the song Mary Did You Know, which is a Christmas song, which is so beautiful, one of my favorites. And I started laughing, and I thought, who am I? I mean, no matter what your faith is, but if you believe that Mary was a virgin and she has this baby, and everybody in town thinks that she's all the things, and I'm laughing going, and here I am feeling sorry for myself. And I just felt like this really deep connection, like to Creator. I was like, wow, that's so huge, very humbling. And so I, in true fashion, to be very efficient, I thought, what an interesting, deep story. I had several men, 5 to be exact, who wanted to come see me for New Year's Eve, or like, why don't you come here, or whatever. And I didn't feel really into any of them. I was in practicing. So I sent a voice note, basically told the story I just told you, the voice note, and I sent it to all 5 of them. And the ones that actually were so into me, couldn't wait to see me, 3 of them have never had children. That was fascinating. Right. And then so there was John, my husband, who I actually did not want to be the one because he lived in Florida. Like I didn't want to stay here. He was my practice partner. Anyway, I remember looking at my phone and I went, because he sent a message and said, I know we haven't known each other for very long, but I know that you're an amazing mother. And I can only imagine that Cameron's going to be okay, or something very, whatever. And I just remember throw the phone down. I'm like, no, that can't be the one. And we went out the next night and we've been together ever since. And it's fascinating. We have to, in my opinion, and I know you and I, we've talked about calling in the one, heal all those bits and pieces that have us calling in the one that may not be the one. They're the one for us right then, because I truly believe we bring in our mirror match. And so it's a matter of really healing those pieces so we don't keep attracting that again and again and again.
That's right. You can enjoy your mirror match.
Now right?
What's up?
It's like, nope, we're going to up level that right now. So, and that's still, listen, for me, honestly, I married a beautiful soul. And he's a beautiful, conscious, awakened man. I feel very blessed. And, my teacher said, okay, so now you're married. Now the game's on. Now this is when because the best spiritual practice is what I believe is to be in a monogamous relationship with someone that is committed, growth oriented, and that the two of you will grow together because you're going to trigger each other. And so there is no more. I used to think I would only attract emotionally unavailable men until I realized that I was actually also emotionally unavailable. It just showed up in different forms. So that was a big aha for me and really changed my life and changed the way I sought out. It actually changed the way I sought out teachings and help. Right. And coaching, because I no longer wanted to get that dopamine push from just talking about it. I wanted to really divorce the story, and retrain the brain. So that's what I did. Yeah.
Wow. So now I would love for you to share maybe an example of how people could get started with your programs, what the work looks like.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. So Sacred She was born essentially, from my healing journey to stop calling in situations. It wasn't just men. It would be a business, for example, or even friendships that were quite toxic, right? Or sabotaging my own dreams, like adopting, right? So what I've done is I actually have this incredible program where I coach women one-on-one and also in what I call the sisterhood. And I take you down this journey where we're going to, bring to light everything that's wonderful in your life and maybe those areas that need to be illuminated so we can shift them. And I use hypnosis and brain training and embodiment. I really believe that the key is that, again, like I mentioned, to feel, to heal. So we use movement, and I don't mean just dance. I mean, how can you artfully let your partner know that he needs to take the garbage out for the 10th time without nagging him? I really teach the differences between men and women. And so there's a free online community we have on Facebook, which is the Sacred She Society, and that's sacred with a K. And the reason why, and then there's also my sisterhood program, which is my intensive program, and then the 101, and that's an application only. But the reason why I use the term sacred is something that actually Dr. Epstein shared with me. We don't have to work on anything divine. So when you hear people talking about teaching the divine feminine and the divine masculine, well, if you truly believe that we come from the divine, we're perfect. Mm-hmm. We don't need to work on anything from the divine. And I woke up in the middle of the night, a while back, a couple years ago, and I thought, yeah, this is our agency. This is our free will. So how can we in this moment, like I'm talking to you, in a very masculine way, sharing with you all the things, but also, you can't see me, but I've got, I have like my flowers here and I have my candle on and I'm touching my furry rug. And how can I bring in more feminine into my life? So what I find is that women who are very driven have kind of lost that zest. They've lost their juiciness. And so I like to show that women can actually have it all. And it starts with like reuniting with who they were as a little girl. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of take it from there.
Love that. And we are coming to the end of our time, so I'd love for you to share where people can connect to get started and learn more about all you're doing.
Beautiful. So I have a great quiz, which actually is the sandysembler.com/quiz. And that actually will take you, you'll take a quiz. And just because you might be a woman doesn't necessarily mean you're leading your relationship in the feminine. And so I just invite you to take that 3-minute quiz to see where you land, and make sure you check your spam for your results, and you'll start getting information from there. And then there's a Facebook group as well. Like I said, you can just find me on Instagram or Facebook. And that's a great way to start. We have a sisterhood that's going to be launching again in a couple months. So we're taking applications, but I think the quiz is a good space to go like, wait a minute, how am I walking in this space? And anyone can reach me on a DM, private messaging is fine.
All right. Well, thank you again for being a guest on the show. And for those listening in, we'll be back after these messages.
Appreciate you.
All right.
Welcome to Dear Sheila, answering real questions with real solutions to help reboot your life. I keep attracting the wrong person. How to attract a healthy relationship. Dear Sheila, after years of struggling to finally get out of a very controlling and abusive relationship, I finally started dating again. The problem is that I keep dating the same type of man. The face changes, yet the characteristics remain the same. My friends always want to introduce me to this person or that, yet I tend to not be at all attracted to who they are sending my way. Then I find someone on my own, and it's Mr. Wrong all over again. My question is, what am I doing wrong, and how can I attract a healthy lover into my life? Signed, Lonely Heart. Dear Lonely Heart, this is definitely the time for rebooting and reinventing your relationship standards. Often in the case of love, when one attracts an unhealthy relationship, it has a lot to do with what they experienced as love from the past. The good news is that with self-love and awareness, the attraction begins to move toward healthy love and relationships overall. Let's run this situation through the Boots formula. Throughout life, one can find themselves facing a difficult situation that often catches them by surprise. Over the years, I saw the patterns in all the times I've had to reboot, and in how I've helped my friends and clients get through a hard time and quickly back into action. Ultimately, I came up with the Boots formula. The B in the Boots formula is for being. It is about who you are being and all you are doing and who you need to be during this situation. You are going to have to be authentic and create love standards based on your needs. Write out a perfect day where you have that new love. Who are you being in this vision? What type of activities do you do together and apart? How do you show up differently? Being honest about what you really want in a partner, not what society wants, your family, or friends. The first O in the Boots formula is for orientation. In order to get the outcomes you desire, you must be honest here. How often do you practice self-love? A healthy and healed individual attracts a healthy partner. Do you date people that you already know are not aligned? Where are you now with the other relationships in your life? Your friends, family, co-workers? Does your current peer group match your core values, essence, and vision? The next O in the Boot formula is for order of operations. Now that you know who you need to be and your orientation, you can decide in which order you must do things. Step away from any relationships that no longer feel right or aligned. Practice saying yes to what you love to do and no to invitations to events that do not fuel your soul. This is a practice for setting boundaries and a new standard to attract the healthy relationships you deserve and desire. In the long run, the order in which you do things is really going to drive your results. The T in the Boots formula is for thinking. This is where your mindset comes in. Stop waiting for a new relationship to show up before you are happier. Choose to live in a grateful and happy state now and in each step in the process. Be proud of yourself for stepping away from what was not aligned, and remember that a genuine smile is one of the most attractive things a person can wear. You will find as you choose your happiness now and express your truth and essence, the person who you are seeking will find you. You will also notice that you are no longer attracted to or attracting people that do not align. The S in the Boots formula is for stepping up. This is the part that puts all the pieces together, and now you step into action. The time is now for us to collectively work together to rebuild this year. My hope is that this video series and my new book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, helps. In my book and on my website, I provide plenty of free resources for anyone dealing with a rock-bottom situation to reinvent and reboot their business and personal life. If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's SheilaMacShow here on KCAARADIO, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and I have some news for you. Yes, you. I'm celebrating my 3rd year now on the station, and will be expanding the show to a global network as well. You may now find the SheilaMacShow on all major podcasting channels, and if you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, all the episodes are now available for viewing there as well. And I'm asking you for a quick favor. If you like the show, please help support the spread of this reboot channel on YouTube as well. My goal is to help as many people as possible through our interesting times to rebuild, reinvent, and reboot your business and personal life. I also wanted to share a little bit more about how I got here, what I do now, and how designing a business career and life on your terms is more than possible at any age or stage in life. I am an enterprisingly forward-thinking consultant, show host, and best-selling author. But how did I get here? Well, I began my career as an entrepreneur and property investment strategist back when I was 23 years young, when I boldly quit my government job with NASA JPL to open my first of 5 large gift stores while also starting to invest in property. I got to work with some of the world's most loved companies, such as negotiations on leases with Warner Brothers and winning trips to London as the top-selling Crabtree and Evelyn provider in the U.S. for multiple years. My stores were built on heart as I gave back to the community I came from. So now, some of you know this, and some of you don't know this, but as a young girl with parents who were not well enough to care for me, I was homeless at age 10, then in foster care, where it was really hard to get a job while in the system. I finally emancipated at the age of 15 to start college early. While running my stores, I worked with a government program. Back then, it was called Job Training Partnership Act, making my stores an open source training site where close to 200 at-risk youth started their careers. Yes, I began my career helping business leaders and working professionals to design a life they love where they can have success in their careers and get to the business of life. See, a funny thing happened along the way. When I first opened my gift store, it was kind of crazy because I was this young upstart. That's what a lot of the store owners called me. My first store was in Montrose, California, in this sweet little hometown shopping park with other stores and restaurants nearby. And so I was the young upstart that didn't know what she was doing. At least that's what everybody said. And I didn't really care what they said. At that age, you know, their opinion was like, I don't really care. So that was probably a really good thing because I stayed focused on what I needed to do. And I had negotiated to lease out a 5,000 square foot gift store that needed a lot of work, and I got free rent and for about 6 months, and I had to start making the rent, which was $5,000 a month, which was a lot of money back then, $1 a square foot. And so I had to learn and relearn. I finally did hire quite soon in the game. I did hire a marketing expert, branding expert, I guess back then. And that lady really helped me to figure things out when I first started. And when you first start a business, especially when you're young, it was like I had no idea what to do, but I needed to learn because my rent was going to start coming due every month. And over that time, I started having more success. I did crazy things like stayed open until almost midnight every night, along with the restaurants who were very close to my store, while everybody else closed shop at about 5 or 6 p.m. So I was making more money from the start, and I just really, my store was to help my kids, and the products I sold was whatever the community wanted. I sold lots of things to people in the entertainment industry. I worked with cruise ships. I worked with many different people in the community. And later on, the store owners actually came to me and asked me if I would consult them and help them. I actually started buying my other buildings because I didn't like the idea. All right, I have found something magical, something new that I am loving. At this stage in my life, I have been switching to the cleanest, best, healthiest makeup, shampoos, facial products. So I did find an incredible makeup line, and they have been around quite some time. It is called Beauty Counter, and if you go to beautycounter.com/SheilaMac, SHEILAMAC, or SheilAMac.com, and at the top of the menu, look for Natural Beauty. That will bring you to the site where you can learn about the specials and give clean beauty a try. I am just loving the difference it's making in my face. And one of the things that was really bothering me was a lot of the other products. I could not find eye makeup that wasn't irritating. So this is really like one of the few products I can actually wear around my eyes. And so I'm really loving everything. It makes my skin feel really clean and fresh. And so give it a try. Again, SheilAMac.com/natural beauty to learn more. Tune in again right here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.